You don't owe clarity to those who thrive in darkness. Your light isn't meant to justify itself to the blind. There comes a moment in every man's life when he sees not everyone wants to understand him. Some will challenge you. Others will try to control you. And some will aim to confuse you until you question your own strength. You've been taught your whole life to explain yourself better, to be clearer, as if understanding is guaranteed through openness. But hear this, some men aren't confused at all. They see exactly who you are, and that's what threatens them. They don't misunderstand by accident. They twist your truth on purpose. They distort your words because your clarity exposes their lies. Your growth highlights their stagnation. Your calm amplifies their chaos. These aren't men lacking wisdom. They lack honor. They don't want truth. They want to drain your spirit until you shrink to fit their bitterness. And here's the trap you keep explaining. You keep justifying. You defend your choices, values, and boundaries as if your worth is on trial, as if they'll nod and say, "Now I get it." But they won't. They never intended to. Their goal isn't understanding, it's control. Your willingness to explain becomes their weapon, twisting your truth into ammunition against you. Stop now, not out of bitterness, but from wisdom. No man argues with shadows. You don't need to defend yourself against those who choose to misunderstand you. You don't justify your light to those addicted to darkness. There's a reason your silence unsettles them more than your words ever could. Silence is where power resides, where boundaries speak, and where your dignity becomes unshakable. This isn't about anger. It's about clarity, reclaiming your energy from those who feed on confusion and chaos. This is a call to emotional wisdom, to psychological boundaries, to quiet self-respect in a world hooked on noise and reaction. If you're exhausted from explaining yourself to those unworthy of your truth, stay with me. In this story, we'll uncover why some demand your explanations, why silence is your strongest shield, and how to reclaim your inner peace. Your worth and strength to walk without apology begin with this resolute choice. Stop explaining to the demons in others and remember who you are. Not every attack is personal. Some men don't strike at you for who you are. They strike because you reflect what they refuse to face. Let this sink in. Brother, you're not the enemy, you're the mirror. When a man carries unresolved pain, unhealed insecurities, or lingering chaos, your peace becomes their irritation. Your boundaries become their disrespect. Your growth becomes their threat. Why? Because your light forces them to face their own darkness. They don't hate your success. They hate what it reminds them they haven't achieved. They don't envy your confidence. They resent how it exposes their self-doubt. They don't attack your voice because it's wrong. They attack it because it's clear. And clarity terrifies the emotionally unsteady. This is what psychology calls projection. When a man can't face his inner truth, he pushes it outward. He calls you arrogant when you're confident. He labels you selfish when you set boundaries. He brands you difficult when you stop pleasing others. If you're not careful, if you lack emotional wisdom, you'll start believing them. You'll mistake their projections for truth. You'll doubt yourself, shrink yourself, and question your instincts, not because you're wrong, but because someone with unhealed pain has cast their shadows onto you. That's how demons manifest, not as movie monsters, but as subtle manipulators in everyday life. They smile to your face while quietly undermining your confidence. They feign care but compete in secret. Their advice drips with their own limits, not your potential. And the worst part, they often wear familiar faces. It could be a parent, a sibling, a partner, a friend, or a boss. It's easy to spot a stranger trying to tear you down. It's harder to admit the one wounding your soul might be someone you've loved. But if you're serious about your worth, about guarding your psychological boundaries, you must face this truth. Not everyone in your life has the emotional capacity to support your growth. Not everyone who says, "I care," truly cares about your progress. Some prefer the old, weaker version of you, the one easy to manipulate, control, or pressure into compliance. And when you change, they're triggered. They say, "You've changed. You think you're better than them." And that's the point, isn't it? You have changed. You're not supposed to stay the same. Growth is the ultimate aim. Their shadows, envy, unresolved anger, or stagnant souls can't bear your transformation. So what do? They provoke you. They bait you. They drag you into arguments. And when that fails, they play the victim. This isn't love, it's emotional warfare. The only way to win is to not engage. Because the moment you explain your boundaries to someone who benefits from you having none, you've already lost. You're speaking truth to a manipulator. You're reasoning with someone who lives in delusion. You're offering vulnerability to those who see compassion as a tool to exploit. No matter how carefully you choose your words, no matter how many times you explain, they won't listen. They filter everything through their own pain. They'll twist every truth you speak into a weapon against you. That's why you must stop explaining, not out of pride, but wisdom. You're not here to fix what they refuse to face. You're not here to carry shadows that don't belong to you. You're here to walk in your truth, quietly, firmly, without apology. If that truth makes them uneasy, let it be. That's not your burden, it's their mirror. A quiet tragedy unfolds in the lives of good men with kind hearts. They believe, if they explain enough, open up fully, and clarify their intentions, they'll be understood. But what they don't see is that explaining to someone who's already made up their mind isn't transparency, it's self-erasure. It starts subtly. You speak your truth, they distort it. You set a boundary, they call it selfish. You step away from toxicity, and suddenly you're the villain in their story. So you explain, you justify, you defend, you replay conversations in your head, wondering if you could have said it differently. You soften your truth to make it more palatable, hoping they'll finally see your heart. But they won't. They never intended to. And the worst part, it's never enough. No matter how much you say, how much emotional effort you pour in, how transparent you try to be, they won't receive it because they never meant to. Every time you try to please them, a piece of you breaks. You start to doubt, am I too harsh? Am I overreacting? Maybe it's my fault. This isn't just exhaustion, it's spiritual erosion. It's the slow unraveling of your self-worth as you keep seeking approval from those who are emotionally numb. This happens when you forget your truth doesn't need permission to exist. If you're not careful, you'll waste years trapped in this cycle. You'll explain your kindness to the cruel. You'll justify your boundaries to the selfish. You'll defend your peace to those addicted to chaos. But no matter how eloquently you speak, they won't receive it. Why? Because they don't listen to understand, they listen to refute. They wait for cracks in your confidence, weaknesses in your voice, to attack, manipulate, and make you question your reality. Here's what you must know. Unshakably, you don't owe your peace to those who choose war. Let that be your new boundary. This doesn't mean you become cold or closed off. It means you choose your energy wisely. A mark of high emotional intelligence is knowing not every why deserves an answer. Not everyone demanding access to your heart deserves to hear your reasons. Not everyone challenging your choices acts from love or respect. Some do it from envy, some from control, some from their own projections. Explaining too much only feeds their illusion that they're entitled to your clarity. But they're not. You have the right to stay silent. You have the right to walk away. You have the right to say, "I won't explain to those who turn my words into weapons." That's not defensiveness. It's psychological self-defense. Silence born of dignity, not ego, is a sign of profound maturity. It says, "I know who I am. I know why I choose what I do, and I no longer seek understanding from those who profit from my confusion." This quiet strength separates the reactive from the wise. The Stoics knew this long before psychology named it. Don't waste time arguing with those who thrive on disorder. You're not here to convince, you're here to live your truth, your values, your future. Why do you keep explaining to men who've shown they don't care to understand? Why do you pour your energy like water into hands that only take? It's not weakness, it's a lie. You've been taught that being misunderstood means you must fix it. You've tied your worth to being liked, mistaking acceptance for safety. When someone questions your choices, beliefs, or identity, you panic, explain, justify. You dive into their chaos, seeking peace in a room full of noise. But here's the wake-up call. You can't find peace by negotiating with disorder. Peace comes when you guard your energy from it. This is where emotional wisdom becomes your shield. Without it, you'll bleed energy trying to convince those who are emotionally bankrupt. They don't understand you because they choose not to. They provoke, twist, and bait because your explanations give them power, not over your logic, but over your spirit. Your attention is your power. Whoever controls your emotional focus controls your inner state. When someone provokes you to explain, defend, or prove yourself, they're stealing your energy. That's how they win, not by outsmarting you, but by claiming your focus. The moment you step into their arena to convince them, you leave your center. You trade inner peace for their approval. That exchange is always a loss. Some men thrive on your discomfort. They feel powerful when you scramble to defend yourself, righteous when you lower your standards to match their chaos. They feel seen when you explain your soul just to make their ego feel safe. But that's not connection, it's control. The more you feed it, the more you lose yourself. Here's what you must face. Explaining too much has a hidden reward. It makes you feel like you're doing something useful. It gives you a false sense of control, as if the right words will make them understand. This time, but they won't, because they're not driven by curiosity. They're driven by ego. And ego doesn't care about truth. It only wants to win. So every time you fall into the cycle of explaining, defending, justifying, you're fueling their game. Worse, you're draining your soul. This is where your self-worth must rise. You must see that not everyone deserves your truth. Not everyone has the right to know your heart's reasons. Not everyone is worthy to stand before your clarity. You have the right to keep it private. You have the right to protect your space. You have the right to say, "This conversation doesn't serve my peace." That's not rudeness. It's setting a psychological boundary. That's the mark of a high-performance mind. The most powerful men don't explain to everyone. They move quietly. They conserve their energy. They withdraw instead of arguing with those who thrive on misunderstanding. It's time you joined their ranks. You've spent too much time watering dead trees, too much time explaining to those unwilling to feel, too many moments placing your peace in the hands of those who never meant to protect it. From now on, let this be your mantra. I owe no one an explanation for the choices I make for my peace. When you feel the urge to explain, prove, or justify, take a deep breath. Remember, you weren't put here to perform for those who secretly want you to fail. Deep down, you explain because you crave being seen. You want someone to say, I get you. I feel you. You're right. That hunger for validation is human, understandable, but it's also the most dangerous trap you can fall into. When your peace depends on others' understanding, you're no longer free. Most of us were taught young that being understood means being safe, that if others approve of our thoughts, choices, or dreams, we'll be okay. But no one told us the truth. Most people only approve when you make them comfortable, and comfort rarely comes from truth, it comes from conformity, compliance, fitting their mold. So what happens when you break that mold? When you grow, when you outgrow their limits, you stop being relatable. You stop being controllable. You become a threat. Instead of adapting, many respond not with weapons, but with blame, silence, and manipulative questions. Why are you acting like that? When did you get so cold? You've changed. Get this straight. They're not confused. They're unsettled because you no longer beg for their approval. Yet you keep going back. You keep explaining. You hope this time they'll see. But if someone truly wanted to understand you, they'd ask better questions by now. If someone truly cared about your heart, they wouldn't use your vulnerabilities as weapons. So why do you keep returning? Because you've mistaken validation for love. That's the most painful illusion to break. But it must break. Otherwise, you'll stay emotionally bound to those who only love you when you're easy to control. Here's the truth. They don't teach in school or in soft motivational talks. You can outgrow others simply by choosing peace over performance. And when you do, they'll often accuse you of being selfish, distant, or cold. But choosing peace doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. Clear about what? Clear that you don't need psychological approval to know your worth. Clear that you're not here to be manipulated by those who feed on your insecurities. This is the turning point in your life. You can keep explaining to those who listen only to judge, or accept that understanding isn't required and your truth doesn't need applause to be real. True emotional intelligence is knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, because your energy deserves to be preserved, not persuaded. Now let's talk about silence. There's a sacred power in not responding. When you stay silent before someone expecting a reaction, you're saying you're no longer under their control. Silence doesn't feed their game. It doesn't validate their drama. It doesn't give them the satisfaction of watching you crumble. Instead, it leaves them alone with themselves. And for those who thrive on control, that's unbearable. So don't mistake silence for weakness. Don't confuse peace with passivity. Sometimes, walking away silently is the strongest move you can make. No grand explanations. No loud closure, just a firm decision. I no longer need to be understood by those who choose to misunderstand me. That, my friend, is the start of emotional freedom. That's the beginning of soul discipline. When your peace becomes untouchable, your life stops being a courtroom. Your choices aren't up for trial. Your truth doesn't need a defense attorney. You don't need validation to breathe. You don't need applause to heal. You don't need permission to be free. You just need the courage to stop explaining and the wisdom to see who's unworthy of your clarity from the start. Let me tell you about a man, wise and strong, full of light. He wasn't perfect, but he was true. He loved deeply, listened carefully, gave more than he took. Yet he had a flaw. He wanted to be understood by those who never intended to see him. Their words were charming, their presence magnetic. But behind the mask was someone who didn't love him for who he was. They loved how he made them feel. He thought explaining would bridge the gap. So he shared his past, his wounds, his values. He explained why he needed space, why boundaries mattered, why chaos triggered his unease. And each time, they nodded, but later twisted it. You're too sensitive. You overthink. You're not fun anymore. You used to be easier. So he tried harder. He softened his voice. He excused their behavior. He told himself they meant well, that he needed to be more patient, more forgiving, more open, until one day he saw the chilling truth. He wasn't communicating, he was begging, and the more he explained, the more he lost himself. That's how emotional theft happens, not with fists, but with small pieces of your truth stolen under the guise of fixing things. This isn't love. This isn't misunderstanding. It's what psychology calls a trauma bond, a cycle where you keep seeking affection from the one undermining your spirit. And it's more common than you think. It might not be a lover. It could be a parent guilting you for having needs, a boss praising you one day and cutting you down the next. It could be a friend who only calls when they need something, then accuses you of being distant when you don't comply. In every case, the trap is the same. You keep explaining to earn respect. But respect isn't built by over-explaining, it's forged through self-respect and upheld by clear boundaries. If someone can't meet you at the level of honesty you offer, if they use your emotional openness as leverage, if they make being yourself feel like a burden, you're not in a relationship, you're in an emotional service contract. This is where emotional intelligence steps in. Sometimes, love needs reason to cut through. You can't always navigate toxicity with emotion alone. You must name it, face it, and walk away. No matter how many good memories, no matter the potential you see in them, no matter how many apologies they offer, it's not enough. If someone keeps demanding you, explain yourself like a broken record, they're not confused. They're comfortable with your self-doubt. The scariest part, they'll keep going until you stop responding. You can't change someone who profits from misunderstanding you. You can't heal in a place that keeps poking your wounds. So how did the man in our story find peace? He stopped explaining. No more long messages to clarify his intentions. No more justifying his need for space. No more trying to make them see him. Instead, he sat in silence and rebuilt himself. He realized peace isn't something you earn by performing. It's your birthright. It's your standard. And those who don't respect it lose access to you. Not because you hate them, but because you finally love yourself enough to protect your energy. Maybe you're that man, or you're still caught in a version of his story. But the ending can change when you stop explaining and start reclaiming control. Your worth isn't something you prove, it's something you preserve. No one, no matter how close or charming, has the right to demand you justify your peace. After years of emotional exhaustion, after endless cycles of explaining, justifying, defending, a day comes when you don't shout, don't argue, don't collapse, you just go quiet, not out of fear, but from strength. Silence isn't weakness, it's a boundary cloaked in calm. It's power without noise. In a world hooked on drama, your silence will unsettle them. They're used to your emotional chaos. They're used to triggering you. They're used to controlling your nerves. So when you don't react, don't explain, don't speak, they panic because silence isn't empty. It's filled with self-respect. It signals their schemes no longer work, that access to your energy is revoked. This is the birth of psychological boundaries. Boundaries aren't just telling others what they can't do, it's deciding what you won't tolerate, won't respond to, won't sacrifice, even if it costs connection. Boundaries don't need to be loud. They don't need declarations or ultimatums. They're felt through your consistency, through your refusal to over-explain, through how you protect your time, through how you walk away with dignity. Not drama. But remember this, people don't test your boundaries by accident. They do it to see if your silence is real or fleeting. They know if they push hard enough, hit the right wound, or trigger the right guilt. You might cave. You might explain again. You might try to prove you're not the bad guy. And if that happens, the cycle restarts. So you must choose. Do you want to be understood by those who are wrong? Or do you want unshakable peace? You can't have both. It takes soul discipline to stay silent when everything in you wants to clarify. It takes maturity to let go of being right and choose freedom. It takes emotional intelligence to see this argument won't solve anything. It only steals your energy. Silence, then, isn't just a tool, it's a philosophy, a daily commitment to preserve your peace, even if it costs approval or the illusion of harmony. Be honest. You don't owe explanations for your boundaries to those who've shown they don't respect them. You're not obligated to keep teaching others how to treat you. Sometimes, you don't need a stronger message, you need a stronger exit. Those who truly value you don't need constant reminders. They don't test your silence, they respect it. Those who don't were never listening in the first place. They were calculating. So here's the mindset shift from now on. You don't need to shout to be heard. You raise your standards to be respected. You don't over-explain, you outgrow. That's the Stoic lesson. Peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of clarity. And clarity comes when you stop reacting to every noise and only respond to what aligns with the noble man inside you. So if you're in an emotional, relational, or spiritual storm, pause it, step back, and instead of explaining, let silence be your shield. Let your distance speak louder than any argument. When you choose calm over defense, you shift from reacting to becoming untouchable. That's how you protect your energy without a word. There's a quiet tragedy around us good men, kind-hearted, empathetic, pouring their energy into being understood, keeping peace, avoiding hurt, even when it wounds them. But here's what no one told you growing up. You don't owe anyone your peace. Not your partner, not your parents, not your past, not your pain. Your peace isn't a gift to trade. It's not a favor to grant when someone's ego is bruised. It's your sacred refuge, your life's torch, your duty to protect. Yet so many of us give it away like it's worthless. We say yes when we mean no. We stay when we should leave. We explain ourselves endlessly until we're exhausted, drained, and resentful. Why? Because we were taught being good means always showing up. That love means being soft. That spirituality means self-sacrifice. But true spiritual discipline isn't trading your happiness for others. It's knowing your inner peace is sacred ground, and not everyone is allowed to tread there. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you stayed in a hopeless conversation just to avoid being misunderstood? How many times have you explained your worth to those who mock it behind your back? How many times have you traded your peace to make others comfortable in their chaos? That's not peacekeeping, it's self-betrayal. The truth is, those who get angry when you protect your peace are the ones who benefited from you not having it. Let that sink in. When you start setting psychological boundaries, when you stop reacting, stop over-explaining, stop letting your soul be invaded by every opinion, you'll notice something strange. Those who value your peace will draw closer. Those who need your chaos to control you will call you selfish. That's when you know you're on the path to healing. It's hard to admit, but most won't say it. Some people don't miss the real you. They miss the version of you that tolerated them. They miss the you who apologized for having boundaries, the you who stayed silent in the face of disrespect, the you who explained your pain to those who turned it into a weapon. But that version of you is gone, and it's not coming back, because now you know your energy isn't a free giveaway. Your silence isn't consent. Your peace isn't negotiable. This is emotional intelligence in action, choosing not to fight every battle, not because you're weak, but because your peace is too valuable to waste on those who don't cherish it. You're not here to open your emotions to everyone. You're not here to fix how others perceive your choices. You're not here to save others from the consequences of their misunderstandings. You're here to live in your truth, to stand firm in your worth, unapologetically. When someone demands an explanation, let your calm be the answer. When someone tests your silence, let your distance be the response. When someone tries to guilt you for choosing peace, remember, you don't owe them chaos to prove you care. You don't owe them pain to prove loyalty. You don't owe them your energy, especially when they use it against you. Peace isn't isolation, it's discernment. It's knowing who deserves access and who only wants control. That's the mastery of self. A rare strength in a world obsessed with reaction. When you reach this point, men will feel your absence in ways words could never convey. They'll see you're not avoiding them, you're just done with their drama. You're not ignoring them, you've outgrown their cycles. They've lived off your habits, your guilt, your need to explain, to rescue, to react. But when you choose silence, they lose access, not just to your presence, but to the control over your mind you once gave them. That's why this silence terrifies them. It's not about winning an argument anymore. It's about rising above the fight entirely. You stop caring about being right. You care only about your freedom. That shift makes those who want you small, broken, or reactive tremble. Your silence is your refusal to play a rigged game. Your silence is your escape from the emotional trap they want you stuck in. It's where your inner peace speaks louder than any opinion about you ever could. If you're sitting quietly, wondering if this silence means you've given up, let me remind you, this isn't surrender, it's self-mastery, and it echoes louder than anything you've ever said. There comes a moment in your journey when everything changes. You stop shrinking. You stop softening your voice to spare others' egos. You stop diluting your truth to make it easier to swallow. You stop apologizing not out of arrogance, but because you've seen the trap. Every apology for being yourself was a quiet permission for others to keep disrespecting you. You've apologized for growing, for stepping back, for needing space, for saying no, for walking away. You've apologized for the sacred parts of you, your honesty, your clarity, your standards. But now you know better. The world doesn't need a muted version of you. It needs you raw, unfiltered, unashamed. Because here's the truth. You were never too much. They were just desperate to keep you small. Your emotional depth made them feel shallow. Your clarity exposed their confusion. Your calm made their chaos unbearable. So they labeled you cold, harsh, selfish, or distant. But you were never those things. You were simply done, sacrificing your worth on the altar of their insecurities. This is the start of psychological detachment, not from love or connection, but from their expectations, from the emotional blackmail that says you must dim yourself or lose them. Now you see, losing them isn't loss, it's liberation. You no longer feel guilty for raising your standards. You don't explain why your peace matters. You don't apologize for cutting off access to those who used your kindness as a weapon. You don't apologize for seeing through manipulation and choosing your mental health instead. You don't apologize for choosing inner peace over external approval. This is emotional intelligence at its strongest, not just understanding your emotions, but mastering how you respond to those who exploit them. Let them call it what they want. Let them write their story. Let them play the victim in a tale where you simply chose not to be their doormat. Because most will never grasp this, your freedom looks like rebellion to those still caged. When you live unapologetically, you make different choices. You stop joining fights you didn't start. You stop answering questions that don't deserve a response. You stop explaining your growth to those stuck in emotional infancy. You don't waste breath proving your peace is valid. You don't spend energy trying to make others like a version of you that no longer exists. You just live in your truth fully, quietly, without regret. And sure, they'll talk. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you've lost your way. They'll say you were easier to control before, though they won't say it outright. But deep down, they know you haven't gotten worse. You've become whole, and that wholeness threatens those who only loved your fragments. So let them misunderstand you. Let them judge you from afar. Let them gossip while you grow. Because while they're talking, you're rising, you're healing, you're building. You're stepping deeper into the life that was always yours. Every choice, every boundary, every unapologetic breath. And in that space, something miraculous happens. You start loving yourself the way you once begged others to, without conditions, without reasons, without explanations. Because now you know you owe no one anything but your own truth. You've said enough. You've guarded your heart. You've explained your peace. You've opened up to those who never truly wanted to understand. Now, you let silence speak. No more justifying your worth. No more explaining your growth. No more clarifying what should have been respected from the start. Some people don't deserve your words, they only deserve your absence. There's a power only silence can hold. Not the silence of defeat, but the silence of release, the silence of spiritual clarity, the silence that says, I've made peace with being misunderstood, and I don't need your permission to be free. This silence terrifies those who control. manipulate with guilt, or weaponizikaos. Because when you stop explaining, they're left with what they fear most themselves. Your words were once their excuse to deny, argue, distort, manipulate. But now, with nothing to twist, nothing to attack, nothing to control, they're left with only your calm, your distance, your unshaken resolve. That's louder than any argument. It says, I've outgrown this conversation. It says, your approval is no longer my currency. It says, I'm not angry, I'm done. This is the final step of emotional intelligence, not reacting, not engaging, just observing and withdrawing. Because true power isn't in domination, it's in discipline. Silence is the most disciplined response. It doesn't prove anything. It doesn't seek approval. It doesn't beg for understanding. It just walks away and lets the void speak for itself. And trust me, they'll hear it in your silent absence. They'll hear every boundary you no longer need to explain. They'll feel every ounce of energy you've reclaimed. They'll face their own reality when your voice no longer softens the shock. And in that space, one of two things will happen. They'll grow, or they'll stay bitter. Either way, it's no longer your burden. Because healing isn't just becoming whole, it's letting go of the need to be understood by those who choose to wound you. Let them sit with your silence. Let them get lost in their own noise. Let them wonder why the power they once had vanished when you stopped speaking. Then they'll see you were never the problem, you were the mirror. And the reflection was too real for them to bear. Here's your final reminder. You don't owe them your words. You don't owe them closure. You don't owe them another breath of justification. What you owe is protecting your peace, honoring your truth, and walking your path with grace. Resolve. And a quiet fire. Let your silence be your answer. Let your life be your proof. Let their confusion be the price they pay for underestimating your strength. You've explained enough. Now it's time to live true to yourself. If this message stirred something in you, if it reminded you of your worth, your strength, your quiet fire, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video if you're done explaining. Subscribe to Stoic Wisdom if you're ready to reclaim your energy and walk in your truth. Comment below, I choose silence. I choose peace. I choose myself. Let the world know you've risen above.